Hi, everybody. It's Judy, and welcome to the More Than Enough Women's Circle. This is our weekly Facebook Live. So if you're here, please let me know and also confirm that you can hear me. I'm always concerned that maybe the audio isn't that good. So please let me know if you can hear me. And I also just want to, again, send out great gratitude for all of the participation in the Tribe Builder Extravaganza. We have some really great momentum today, and I am excited about the gift that we're going to be giving away today too, which is the Echo Dot. And you still have time, right? You have time right now to be able to actually invite your friends. So go ahead and you can do that now as well. So today's topic, as I said in my email, is all about the information that I've been gathering and researching about women and stress. So first I want to talk to you about, it's really, it's shocking, maybe, too dramatic of a word, but it's really scary to see how much and how unequal it is in terms of how much stress women have to deal with. And there's reasons why. So I'm going to go over those reasons why first. And also, then I'm also going to go through some of the ways that it really does impact us and impact us to our detriment. And then also, obviously, I want to give you ways to really support you and to impact you. And these are easy things that you can do. These are doable. They don't take a lot of time, but it really is going to be supportive and helpful to you and to your business. So when I think about, why this is happening over and over again in the research, there were three main reasons. And the first reason was that, number one, most of us as women, we don't have just one job. Right? We have our day job, and then we have our job that, that we go to when we go home at night, right? So there's not always a break. We don't always get a break, catch a break, can get ahead of the wave. And that's one really important thing that happens, that we tend to take on a lot of responsibilities at home. And sometimes we don't have a partner to help take up the slack. I mean, in all honesty, I'm single. So for me, everything falls on my shoulders. So whether I'm running my business or I'm running my home, that's obviously true. Now, obviously, I don't have children. I have a dog, right? That's a little different. Obviously, it's a big difference than children. But having additional responsibility with, caring for children or maybe even elderly parents, that can really be a huge weight on our shoulders. The second thing that comes up in the research is the fact that women tend to not prioritize themselves. So you don't tend to prioritize yourself in terms of your needs, your desires. And it kind of like, well, I'm going to be at the end of the list. And that actually works against us, because by not making ourselves a priority, it doesn't help us meet the needs of others. Right? It tends to impact our attitude. It also impacts our effectiveness, right? So not only does our attitude suffer, but also the effectiveness. So if I'm coming to, a client, or if my clients are dealing with challenges at home, it impacts their work, right? And we like to look at those things of like, how can we address some of the challenges that are happening? And, there's that word of compartmentalizing. I think that's kind of a myth. I think it's kind of BS. Your life is your life, and things are impacting us. So how can we deal with what's actually happening with the stress, right? When we think about what stress is anything that impacts us, and it can motivate us, and it can also be to our detriment, right? It can actually demotivate us and be destructive. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But when we also talk about the third reason that women are more impacted by stress, it's because we tend to not be the decision makers in certain parts of our life where that when if we were a man, we would be the ones in power to make the decision about the environment. So at some point, not to go into that blame game or to go into victim mode, but the fact of the matter is that there are certain situations where women are not in power and our needs are not always represented. Now, is that an opportunity for us to step up and actually get into those roles of leadership? Absolutely. I absolutely encourage that. And I absolutely think that, for all of us women, we stand on the shoulders of other women that have come before us. And we also can stand for all of our sisters among us and all of the ones that are coming after us. So for us to be able to take more leadership and ownership of situations, that can only help us. But I do want to acknowledge that there are certain situations where we haven't gotten into those roles yet, where we are in an environment that we can change and we can shift. That causes us stress when we don't have those opportunities or those doors haven't opened for us yet. So that's just those three main themes that are coming through on, in research that I've been reading over and over again in different forms. Now, the other things is some of the stress symptoms. Like, do you even realize that if you are, you have tight muscles, back pain, right? Any kind of tension in your body, that is probably a result of the stress that you're experiencing. Depression, if you're getting the blues, if you're going even deeper and having more of a clinical experience, right? That can also be a sign of overstress. Lack of focus. You forget things. Anytime you have too much stress, it's going to impact your ability for your executive brain, right, to be able to function clearly and effectively. Anger and hostility. We tend to have more mood swings. We tend to have more challenges in terms of being able to manage the things that are triggering us, right? Our fuse gets shorter when we have greater stress because there's more things that are compromising our system, because stress doesn't just impact us physically, it impacts us mentally, emotionally, physically, all of those areas. And think about it. It's like, the triple, the triple whammy trifecta. It's not a good thing. Negative thinking. So I happen to know, most of my clients, we have this conversation from time to time about the inner critic, right? How loud is your ideal woman in terms of how things have to be? Now, truth be told, I was just talking to someone today about my ideal woman of thinking about, how I need to be or how I need to show up. And there's times that we just have to allow ourselves to have those moments where we just let off our steam and let off that stress, because, if we just keep it bottled up, it's not going to help us be as effective as we can be. Feeling overwhelmed. Those feelings of being distracted, right? Not being able to focus, that goes back to that. And then here's the other thing, which is, excessive smoking or eating. Some of the ways that we soothe ourselves, right? That's like self-sabotage. If we're overeating, if we're using substances like alcohol or smoking or, cigarettes, whatever, those things can obviously are signs and symptoms, but there are also other things that impact our health. So when we increase our stress, right, some of the things that we're at risk for, more accidents, more headaches, poor digestion, skin disorders. It actually comes out in our skin. Emotional disorders, asthma, high blood pressure, and strokes. And ladies, I have to tell you, women definitely have a much higher risk of heart disease. It's just amazing how, we are so caring and so loving. It's almost like, metaphorically, that we just overuse our hearts to our own detriment. Colds and infections, backache, arthritis, heart attacks, as I mentioned before, cancer, ulcers. These are all things that have been linked to a high risk of stress. So also, another thing that we need to think about is as we get older, our hormone balances change. So when we have a hormone imbalance, that can be associated with postpartum, menopausal changes. Those can all affect our chemical vulnerability to stress. So those are also things that you need to be aware of when it comes to how it's impacting you on a physical, emotional, and mental level. So how can we cope with it, right? Let's get out of the dark and dungy part of the conversation, and let's get more into the solution, right? Because let's think about what is it that we can do to actually support ourselves. Well, one of the things that I am a huge proponent for is being a part of a community. As women, we do better when we have our friends to support us, people that have been there, done that can really be supporters for us. And guess what? That's what this community is all about. That's why I created it. This, More Than Enough Women's Circle is all about how can we feel that we are more than enough. And that instead of having that inner critic telling us that we're not doing enough, we don't have enough, we aren't enough of X, Y, Z, right? So being able to create this community really supports you. It also supports me too. I actually really love and appreciate all of your participation. I really do. So let's get down to the nitty gritty in terms of not only is that an important, this community an important way, but there's also an opportunity for you to work with me one-on-one if there's a specific challenge that you have. I'll be telling you more and more about the programs that I'm rolling out, but I also promised you that I would tell you about one thing that I learned that is super simple, and I was reminded of it when I was out in Sedona last week at a retreat. And one of the things that we learned is that, at our core, I hope you can read this, at our core, we have our heart's deepest desire. And then we have this layer around us that kind of gets in the way of us being able to have that heart's deepest desire. Some of them are limiting beliefs. So I talked about that before. Some of the limiting beliefs is that ideal woman telling us that we have to be a certain way, right? Some of the other things are conclusions. Some of the conclusions that we make about ourselves or about others. We assume that things have to be a certain way. Like one conclusion is life has to be hard, right? That's a conclusion that some of us have made. Or I can't make enough money, or I can't break through this barrier, or there's that glass ceiling that I can't break through, right? So there's a conclusion or a limiting belief. Another thing is an expectation. An expectation is something that happened once, and you think it's just going to keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. And I have to tell you, there's a guarantee. I'll make you this guarantee. Anytime you have an expectation or an assumption, oops, there's the assumption. If you have an expectation or you have an assumption, guaranteed, you're going to end up disappointing yourself. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. Because if you don't have a clear agreement with someone else or with yourself in terms of what's realistic, chances are you are setting yourself up. So one of the ways you can really decrease your stress is looking at how you are communicating with yourself. We can only change ourselves. And one of the most important things that we can do is be present with who we are and what's most important to us. So when we think about our heart's deepest desire, what is most important to you? Are you clear on that? Get really clear. And when you're running your life and you're making decisions based on your heart's deepest desires and those values, those core values, chances are you're gonna have a decrease in stress. At least that is what the research also shows. The research shows that the more you are conscious and clear about how you are moving through life, how you are making conscious decisions, the more conscious decisions that you're making, the more you are going to be able to handle with stress, because those decisions become easier to make. Now, I'm not saying that, and some of you may be saying, yeah, but I have so much on my plate and there's nothing I can take off of my plate. And to that, I'm going to say there may be some limiting beliefs, there may be some conclusions, and there may be some expectations. And what I mean by that is some of the things that I've witnessed in my clients is that there's this thing called over responsibility. There are times that there are adult humans that we assume responsibility for, even though they are completely capable human beings. We assume that they cannot take care of themselves, or we have an expectation that they can't, that we have to do it. So sometimes we do that unconsciously. I'm not even saying that you do it consciously. It may actually be really unconscious. So there's no blame here, okay? We all do it from time to time, but the more we can be present and the more we can be from that place of our heart's deepest desire and also a clarity of what's most important to us, how our values are guiding us, really, really important. And the last one down here is judgments. Judgments really get in the way with our heart's deepest desire, because whether we're judging ourselves or we're judging others, there's this layer of should that just constantly is impacting our lives. Like, oh, I should be doing this. This should be happening. This should be happening quicker. This should be happening slower. Or, instead of understanding that those judgments are really our mind, and the mind being the ego, telling us that there's a right and a wrong, that there's a good and there's a bad. And somehow we're a part of that equation. And generally we come out on the short end of the stick on that particular equation. So when you're really clear about all of those layers, all of those things that can potentially be blocking you from your heart's deepest desire, you can get more present, get more clarity. And there are more and more steps that I'm going to be going through in the next couple of weeks to help you do that. Because part of what I've been learning over the past 15 years of my business as a coach, and even before that, I've been studying and working with this kind of material for years and years, because it's been a mission of mine. I've been one of those burned out executives. I've been, and there are days that I still slip into it. So I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm really grateful that my toolbox is so full. And when my tools aren't working, I also have amazing, amazing friends that can support me and that really, really help me. So again, coming back to the community, this community is here for you to support you when sometimes we don't always have that person at the perfect time to be able to support us, but there may be an opportunity that you can expand and actually allow a community to support you. So with that said, I'm so excited that you're here and that I was able to share this really valuable information with you. And I look forward to seeing you next week, next Thursday on our Facebook Live. And without further ado, I want to remind you one more time, we have our Tribe Builder Extravaganza. So if there's any way, any additional businesswomen that you happen to know that are burned out, that have been telling you how stressed out they are lately, please send them an invitation and invite them in to the More Than Enough Women Circle. We're glad to have you. Plus, the benefit is that you get to win points towards today's amazing gift, which is the Echo Dot. So I look forward to giving that to some lucky winner today, and have an amazing day. I'll see you next week. Bye.